Hello and welcome to Blogging for Programmers. My name is Lewis Davidson. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about structure. And this is probably something that maybe I should have done earlier, maybe not. I didn't want to get into this too early. And because it's not super important to me, as long as you know what you're doing and you get to where something that's cohesive and makes sense. But one of the things I typically will find myself doing is writing a structure sort of as I have here on the side on my whiteboard here. And I'll have a title. Heading 1 is a title. Weird. I don't know why they do that in blogs, but that's just the way it is. They make it heading 1. If you look at in WordPress, the first thing you do when you click a heading, it goes to heading 2. Don't know why. And then put text. I'll put text in every single one of the blocks. But you write an intro. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's a little story, maybe. Here's a little setup. Here's something to give you the hook, right? Here's the hook. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why should I read this? Why should I not read this? We talked about this earlier. Maybe this doesn't pertain to your thing. Maybe it does, to your OS or your programming language or whatever. So then you set that up. Maybe you show a little example about what you're trying to accomplish. Whatever you need to introduce the topic that you're at hand. And then you have a heading 2, which is more or less a heading 1 in a normal document. And that heading says, here is the setup for the big thing we're trying to get. And maybe you're gonna show some code, or you're gonna show some code that doesn't work well enough. Maybe you're gonna give a few details. You always want to be on point. Don't start talking about databases and then, let's say you're talking about database physical structures, and then somehow you get into normalization and the history of other databases and tennis or something. Get to the point. Make sure you're to the point you're talking about. Whatever's in the title, every one of the headings should be something about that title. I mean, occasionally an aside is good. This is a blog, and whatever makes you happy. Sometimes I'm just my last episode is for the first run here is gonna be have fun. So I want to make sure that it's clear. But put it together, have that setup information. The next thing is another heading 2 after you finish that. And maybe you have heading 2s, 3s, and 4s in there. It depends on the situation. If you're writing a big blog, that sometimes makes sense. But if you find yourself having too many headings, you probably are off the rails. Just like if you find yourself having too many bullet points. And bullet points are something that'll drive you crazy if you look at enough blogs. People like to put a lot into bullet points. Bullet points are great for lists of things, but don't make them like lists of techniques. Those can become headings or even just bolded text, if you will. So have that information. Then maybe have some subheadings. Like if you want to say, this is how you write this code, and this is how you would do it on Windows, this is how you do it on Mac. Those could be sections to break that down and whatever. So make headings. Headings are something that every one of the things that scans for SEO really like having headings. You don't have to have super duper headings. It's just better. I think I mentioned earlier, sometimes I don't write the headings until after I'm finished. So I'll just stream of conscious, then I'll put in headings, and it sort of comes out to this. And that's, you're probably going to end up doing a little bit of both. You're going to look at it, you're going to read it. Then you're going to go, oh yeah, I need to add a heading here. I need a heading here. And as you get better at it, you'll start feeling it out. But that's, just the way it is. And then usually I want to end this out with a summary or a conclusion. I want to summarize what we've learned, the biggest points. Not that this is the first time you hear these, right? Summary and conclusion should not be the first time something's brought up. Shouldn't introduce a new topic, a new story. You're putting all the stuff that's been in the document already. And then the last thing is an appendix. If you have a code that you're including in your article, your blog, and that blog tends to be really long, or the setup needs to be long, like you've got to generate some data, you've got to generate some files or something, put that in the appendix. Then it can be really long and hidden out of the way. But that, and up in the original document where you start showing the code bit, say, first you need to do the things that are in the appendix, or there's a script in the appendix, and maybe you have a subheadings in the appendix for each script they need to run or when they need to run it. But I found keeping that out of the main text cleans it up if that text doesn't need to be in the main text as part of it. Like it's just things you should have known or things you should have set up. And that's basically it. I mean, a little bit of structure goes a long way and sort of helps you bucket things in the list. And maybe you write that structure ahead of time. Maybe you don't. But in the end, it's best if you can have some headings and things. Not essential. I mean, it's not necessarily required. It just makes it a little better. Have fun. That's what I'm saying. All right. Hope this helped. Talk to you next time.